Hello writers, come write with me. My name is Mykela Greenwood. I create worlds for mind adventures. Welcome to my YouTube channel, Write with Mykela. Don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the bell so you can go on this journey with me. Today we are going to discuss climax, and then we will add a word or two on synonyms. When we read chapter 9, I mentioned climax and told you that the climax is the highest point of tension or action in the story. It's where the story resolves itself because your protagonist succeeds or ultimately fails. Another way to say that is that the climax of the story is when the story resolves the conflict of the plot and is the most exciting part of the story. Your story should build up to this point. This is where the hero saves the day. Or in our shared plot story, it could be where the one friend receives the cure or becomes healed. Of course, it could be the battle before getting to the cure. And the cure could be an epilogue instead of a climax, because you could build up to a battle that they have before they get to the secret place or within the secret place. So then that would be the climax. You, as a writer, must decide. Climax also mentions plot. So let us review plot. A plot is a sequence of events that shape the broader story, with every event causing or affecting each other. Let me give you an example. You could have a series of events, say your daily routine. Getting up, going to school or work, coming home. Yes, that is a series of events. But this doesn't build up to anything. It's just routine. Now, let's go with the school example. If you add in weekly tests, 6 weeks or 9-week test, midterms, all the way to finals, you are getting closer to the climax aspect, because each test builds on the other. Of course, we want our stories to be more interesting than a year of school. But you can, of course, have a year of school involved in your story. Then other critical things could happen around those same times. Your story would have a natural progression. Seasons are also another natural progression. As you move through the seasons in a year, you can move through the seasons of a character learning things. However, progression in a story does not give you a climax. There needs to be a problem in your story that your main character or your protagonist has to solve. Your plot is a series of events that get you closer to solving that problem. And the climax is actually solving it. The climax, The Lord of the Rings, was when all the allied people brought the battle to the gate of the Dark Lord Sauron, while Frodo battled Gollum. This was not the end of the story. There was still an epilogue, or a basic conclusion to wrap the story up. Now, this final climax was not the only climax. Each book in that series had its own climax, but all of the books in Lords of the Ring built up to this one event. If you're a Star Wars fan, there were climaxes where there was fighting in space inside the Death Star, flying through all the tunnels, and fighting on the ground all at the same time. Pick any genre. Pick comedy. Find a movie. Maybe Young Frankenstein. There's a climax. The action builds up to the point of Dr. Frankenstein exchanging part of his brilliant brain with something from his creation, so that town people aren't scared of the creation now that the creation has part of the brain. Or maybe the movie Short Time, where the climax is sometime around Bert learning that he isn't going to die in 2 weeks. Pick action. Find a movie. Maybe Mission Impossible. What's the climax? What does that movie build up to? Pick a romance, like When Harry Met Sally. What's the climax? Where is the highest point of action in that movie? When I shared my plot with you, I told you it was a bare bones plot. You, as a writer, have a lot of latitude to fill out the plot with all the events that you want to happen. And you get to choose how to build your story to the ultimate climax. Does the friend get the cure or healing? Does the friend die when your characters are within reach of the cure? Does another character die instead? Or perhaps you find the cure, but it doesn't work. Or it doesn't work right away. Or it's missing an ingredient. These are all your choices. Just remember to build to your climax. You don't want, in the beginning, ... Then they lived happily ever after. We want meat in the middle. We want action or events that move our stories. I'm very big on just write. Write and write. I just want you to write everything down. You think it, you imagine it, write it down. Then when you edit, you can find the smaller climaxes in your story and break your story down into chapters. While tests in schools aren't necessarily climaxes for a story, I want you to think of those tests as similar to a step towards your main climax. And each smaller test or event is the climax of your chapter. And truly, while your characters won't necessarily have a test in school, they will have a test in life. And depending on your story, that test could be physical, emotional. It could be a test to build, the character. The character's inner personality, inner strength, inner motivation, anything to build the character. It could be like a personal test for them. Remember, there should also be an antagonist in your story, which is someone or something against your character. The antagonist helps create the conflict your protagonist is trying to solve. The last thing I will say about climax is that if you have connected your readers emotionally to your characters, then the climax is where your readers are on the edge of their seat, rooting for your characters to win or fail if they hate your character. Die. If they hate your character, then it's going to be the opposite effect. But if they love your character, then they're gripped with whatever action is happening and they want it to resolve. They're rooting for your character. The climax is why your readers have engaged with your story. This is the point where your readers look forward to. You have built the story to this point, so don't let your readers down. Go out with a bang. Now, I want to discuss something a little less climactic, and that is synonyms. And I found that up above what I'm about to say. A synonym is basically a word or phrase that means exactly or nearly exactly the same thing. Okay, why would I bring up synonyms? It's because your readers or your listeners don't want to read the same word every other sentence or so. This is another editing tool that I'm going to give you. When you're creating, just write your scene. When you edit and you see the same word several times in a row, and up there I had of course, twice. So I needed to edit that out. I didn't. So when you see the same word several times in a row, there's an easy fix. So don't panic about this. It's an easy fix. Say the word you wrote was extraordinary, and that is really what you meant to say. But if you have to use it 2 or 3 times in a row, it can bog down your writing or kind of lose its meaning or effect. So what you do is you just move your mouse to the word, right click on the word, and scroll down to synonyms. For extraordinary, word gives me a choice of strange, odd, unusual, unexpected, and astonishing. When I thought of the word originally, I was thinking of along the lines of astonishing. So I can put that word in, replace the second extraordinary with astonishing. If I have extraordinary a third time, I can also right click on astonishing and find the synonyms for that word, which are amazing, surprising, astounding, shocking, and bewildering. So I pick another word. A time perhaps this word repetition is okay is when you have dialogue and your character uses the word repeatedly. If this is a part of your character's personality, then leave it. But be consistent. Think of Disney's character Goofy. And that character says "gosh" a lot. And I'm sure that you could think of other characters that say the same thing over and over. This one time at band camp, and that was repeated over and over in that movie. If you can think of the name, you can leave it in the comment below. That is for your dialogue. Okay, it's not for the narration or whatever. So if you have dialogue and you have a character, you can repeat that word that character says. But if you have narration or you have story, you want to change up that vocabulary. When you're writing, do not worry about climax or synonyms. When you're editing, if your scene doesn't move your plot or story along, edit it out. Or cut and paste it to a Word document and save it for a different story. When you are editing, then use Word to help you find the synonyms. That's just an easy tool. Remember, writing is supposed to be fun. I enjoy it. Have I cut scenes out? Certainly. Even if I really enjoy the scene, sometimes I have to cut it out. Sometimes I narrate it and instead of using dialogue. But sometimes even if I enjoy it because I've gotten to know my characters and it is part of who they are, if it doesn't move the story, the scene has to go. That doesn't mean that you as a writer don't know about those cut scenes. If the scene helped you to develop your character and decide things about their personality, then that scene served a purpose. Not for your readers. It served a purpose for you. Do I use synonyms from Word? Yes, I do. Sometimes the word I think of originally just isn't the word I want. You know, sometimes there's that word on the tip of your lips or the tip of your tongue, and you want it, but you can't think of the word, and you kind of know what it means. So I will use a synonym to see if I can find the word I want. It's a very useful tool, and I've found the words I've wanted many times that way. It's just like, it's on the tip of your tongue, you can't say it, but it means this. Okay, well, maybe it doesn't quite mean this. Maybe it means that. And you type in a couple different words and you do the synonym, and then you come up with the word. It's the easiest way to do it. When I was younger, of course, we had thesauruses, and we could look up words that way, but you had to have the book, and you had to be able to know how to spell everything, and Word helps us so much nowadays. It spells everything for you, and it checks for synonyms, and it checks for passive voice. So Word is very useful for us as writers. Well, writers, we don't have a writing assignment today. We just had a little literary or writing jargon and a writing tool. Still, I had fun, and I hope this video helps you in developing your stories. Don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the bell so we can continue to write together. Leave a comment on a word that you use a lot in your everyday speech. And maybe you don't know it. Maybe you recorded yourself in a video and then you watch the video and you're like, oh my goodness, how many times did I say that word? Let's go back and review the video and count them. 1, 2, 3. You know, sometimes we don't know what we do. But if you know it, leave that word down in the comments below. If you're really ambitious, then you can also comment on the synonyms Word gives you. So you could go into a blank Word document, type the word, and then see what synonyms you get. If you're joining me on the chapter exchange, then you can send me your chapters as a PDF or Word document Word document format. No Google Docs, please. Send them to WritewithMykela@gmail.com. Also, check out my website at www.bymykela.com. You can read character bios there for my Mykela series. I also have like probably half the team of operatives on there, and I have 5 characters from the City of the Ancients, which is the story we're reading on there. So you can check that out and read those bios. Maybe if you read about Kirsha and it doesn't seem right, then you can kind of comment on that. Hey, I thought Kirsha was more like this, or whatever. Or you can read about Arisha and Arik, and you'll get a little bit more history than what you have in the story that we've read so far. Join me on Friday for story time. I will be reading chapter 11, Questioning, from the City of the Ancients. And join me Tuesday where I will discuss idioms. That's another thing to do with your setting and your time period. So we'll have some fun with idioms. Thank you for joining me today. I really appreciate your participation. If you know someone who would like this video, then please share it with them. This is Mykela with Write with Mykela. Bye for now.